A very good morning to you. If the strike action continues, what are we looking at here?
Well, I can't say about the specifics, but at the general level, the financial situation of SAA is just going to keep getting worse, and its competitiveness in the market is going to keep getting worse. So it's just going to exacerbate the crisis that already exists.
Reputational damage adds on to that as well, doesn't it?
I suppose it does, but at this point, the financial situation is really the most dire aspect of SAA, and naturally any losses that are incurred because of the strike are just going to make that worse.
I mean, SAA is saying it's 52 million a day. I mean, with that sort of loss, you wonder how you can ever pull yourself out of that.
Well, indeed. At the same time, it's important to remember that SAA has made losses in the hundreds of millions, in some cases of billions, per year in past years, and currently holds billions of rand in government-guaranteed debt. So in that context, actually 50 million a day is a relatively small number, but of course it just adds to the pain in an already dire situation.
But if they were making 52 million a day, surely they should be in a better position. That's not a bad lot of money to make.
No, certainly, but I think the strike is about much bigger issues, really. And you know, if SAA was a profit-making airline, it could absorb this relatively easily. Other airlines internationally have also experienced these kinds of strikes. British Airways is one example. But the main issue with SAA is it's actually been in some kind of state of financial crisis for many years now. That hasn't been resolved. The unions, maybe to some extent, in an understandable way, have lost patience. But at the same time, it's not entirely clear that they're unimplicated in the problems that the carriers had. So the frustration as a South African is that really this problem's been around for a very long time. It hasn't been resolved. It seems to have been actually getting worse. And despite a lot of tough talk from the government and from the Treasury, it doesn't seem to be materially improving.
If the unions get what they want, what sort of impact would that have on the books for SAA? I mean, do they have that increase, and why do you think they can't meet somewhere in the middle?
Right. Again, so I can't say specifically what the financial impact would be, but SAA was offering 5.9%. The unions were asking for almost 3 percentage points more than that. I think it's safe to say that SAA doesn't have the money to be giving significant above-inflation increases. I saw a union representative yesterday saying that it wasn't really about wages, it's about big organizational issues, but the reality is that this was prompted by a wage disagreement. And I think, like other state-owned enterprises, we're just not in a situation where we can really justify. I mean, even if a plan could be made, how do we justify giving above-inflation increases to an airline that's been repeatedly bailed out, that's still not performing, and that basically looks like government's trying to just stabilize, just get out of crisis mode so they can sell it?
All right, so selling, I mean, that seems to be the option at the moment, doesn't it? Because it's not playing out in any other sort of area. Who's likely to buy it? What would they sell it for? Would it be literally, you know, 5 rand and you pick up all the debt?
Right, it might well be. Again, I can't speak to specific options. I know that the Treasury has a number of different points in time, because at one point, Treasury had oversight. SAA was moved under the Treasury, which was an interesting move. Treasury had been talking to different potential partners. But the point is that basically, and this is what people also need to understand, often when we experience these situations with state-owned enterprises, people say, well, just privatize. Well, if an enterprise has got a large amount of debt, private investors are not necessarily going to want to take that on. You have to give them some kind of appealing option. So at this point, the effort seems to be stabilize the airline operationally and financially in terms of month-to-month profit and loss, which the strike is obviously compromising, pay off the debt, and then put together some kind of proposal that's actually appealing for, even if you don't fully privatize it, but you sell off part of it.
I was going to say, can you break it up? Would that be a more feasible option?
Well, you wouldn't be breaking it up. You'd be essentially maybe selling 49% or 51%, depending whether the investor wanted a controlling stake. But the issue really is that at this point, SAA is not an appealing investment. I wouldn't be particularly happy to see SAA privatized, but I think we've reached a point, in fact, we reached a point a number of years ago where there doesn't really seem to be an alternative, because given the other pressing social obligations we have in South Africa, we can't be giving an airline billions of rand a year when we say we don't have enough money for additional social grants or gender-based violence issues or those kinds of things. How do you justify
and also knowing how it's been abused. So, I mean, I think that's
right. I mean, you know,
exacerbates the problem.
Yes, I mean, unfortunately, corruption's been widespread throughout the state. So we had it at SASA, we've had it at Eskom, we've had it at SAA. So to some extent, we also need to just resolve the corruption issues. That's not in itself a reason to privatize. But at SAA, it's been a combination of operational failures, corruption, financial failures and so forth. So, and really the state has never come along with a convincing proposition as to why we need a national airline.
You say paying off the debt would help stabilise it, put it in a healthier framework. Where's that money going to come from?
Well, the Treasury has committed a certain amount of support to SAA. I don't think it's given a specific number, but the inclination has clearly been to give Eskom money to repay the debt. What's interesting is that 5.5 billion that you mentioned, in the budget documents earlier this year, there was an indication that all of that should be used to repay debt. I saw an Eskom SAA executive on television last night who seemed to suggest that only 3.5 billion had been used for that and 2 billion had been used for working capital. So that already suggests that even the requirements that the Treasury had placed on that money have not actually been kept.
Sean Miller, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.